Good morning, everybody. I'm Jody Schneider, president of the FCC and an editor at Bloomberg News here in Hong Kong. And I'd like to welcome you to the fourth in our breakfast briefings. This is a series of workshops that we began this summer to give journalists and other interested people more tools and ideas and support in covering the Hong Kong protests. The fifth I'm announcing right now, and the flyer will go out on this in the next day. The fifth in the series will be next Tuesday on first aid and how this relates to covering the protests. So I think that'll be an interesting one. We'll have members from the Red Cross. And also this week, on Thursday, we're going to have a luncheon panel that will look at the Sino-British Pact and whether it is dead or on life support. I think it's sold out, but there's a waiting list. So if you haven't signed up and you want to check with the front desk on your way out today. But I wanted to introduce our speaker, and our moderator is Eric Wishart, our first vice president of the FCC with AFP. And we'll leave plenty of time for questions on this as well. But what we're going to be looking at today is covering mental health and suicide. And this is one of the issues that, of course, has developed for journalists within the Hong Kong protests, is how to responsibly and ethically cover suicides and mental health. There have been rumors and speculation about a number of suicides, with some reports not only linking them directly to the protests, but giving details of how they were carried out. This workshop will look at how to cover these issues responsibly, and this is one of the most sensitive issues a journalist has to deal with. We'll also look at other mental health issues and how journalists covering these events can take care of themselves. Professor Paul Yip, our speaker, is the director of the Center of Suicide Research and Prevention at HKU, and has been advising the World Health Organization on media engagement and reporting of suicide. He's spoken extensively on coverage of suicide and will explain how it should be handled by journalists, including use of language, imagery, and how much, if any, detail of the method used should be given. He will show us some good practice models, and he will look at the impact the tense situation here has had on mental health in the general population, and more specifically, how journalists can deal with their own stress and exhaustion. As I said before, this is the fourth in the FCC series of workshops for journalists covering the Hong Kong protests. We're posting the videos, as we will today. Sarah Graham, our social media coordinator, will be live blogging this, and we'll be putting it on Twitter, so feel free to share on social media as well. Without further ado, Professor Yip and Eric, thank you.
Thanks, Jody. So, Paul, you'll speak for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we'll have time for a Q&A afterwards. So, thank you. So,
well, it's very early in the morning, so I'm not used to sit down and then to talk to you. So if you don't mind, can I stand up and then talk? I feel a bit better. No. When I received the invitation from Eric, I was in Taipei. I was in Taipei and attending a conferences, and actually there's also a lot of coverage about the Hong Kong situation. So I think what we have experienced, I think in the last 2 months, I think indeed it is a very critical and challenging time of Hong Kong. And I remember yesterday when the cable TV, they came to interview me about what I think about, this level of confrontation. I think it seems that we are really on a very slippery slope, and it's also spiraled down, and it actually very, very unfortunate. And sometimes I think the media itself, I think there is a role to play. I mean, whether we can do it in this way or the other way, I think it might be able, to help the situation. But on this occasion, I think Eric asked me to talk about this mental health and also the media reporting. So I'd like to just to give you an overview about the world situation first, because it is very important that we have an international perspective of our situation. We just do not look at a tunnel vision for what Hong Kong is doing. So in the suicide, I think we talk about, each year we have 800,000 people die every year. So we are talking about, after my talk, there will be 100 people all over the world, they die of suicide already. So I think it is not only a local problem, it is a public health problem, and it is also a global challenge. And also we're looking at from 15 to 29, it is the second leading cause of death. And actually in Hong Kong, it is the first leading cause of death, I think, among the young people. And also, and then when the World Health Organization in 2013 and 2020, and then they have what we call the Mental Health Action Plan, and then they aim to reduce, I think, the suicide rate by 10% by 2020. Right? So actually, but when we're looking at what happened, I think at a global level, we see in Hong Kong, I think our suicide rate itself is not, I think, very high. I think we are about average. I think Korea has been known as one of the highest rate in the OECD country, and then with that sort of rates, Japan, USA, and in Australia as well. So I think that is hopefully to give you some sort of perspective about the Hong Kong situation. And as you see in Hong Kong, I think in 2003, when we have SARS, I think that is when we have a very high rate, I think 18.8. I think at that time, I think we have about 1,200 people die 1,200 people die in the year of 2003. And then, but since then, it is coming down, and then I think the situation is leveling off. Where I have this blue line from is what we call the age standardized rate, because Hong Kong have a very aging population, and then aging the elderly people, they have a higher rate. So if you would like to do an international comparison, so you have to put the world population structure as a reference. So if we looking at the world's as a standardization, and then what we see is about 8.9 per 100,000. So up to now, each year, I think we have about 900 people die in Hong Kong every year. Now, when we talk about 900 people, so on average, there will be 2 and 3 people every day, right? 2 and 3 people every day. Now, I do not mean it is not significant. Well, I mean, one is too many, but at least we have some sort of sense of the scope of the problem. So what happened, I think, when we're looking at the monitoring, I think from our center, I mean, we found out that elderly people in Hong Kong, they have a very high rate, and then, but it is coming down, the middle age coming down. But what we have seen, it is this 15 to 24. It has gone up. And then our latest data suggests us up to 2018, I think the trend is still going up. Now, the trend, the youth suicide rate going up, it's not only happened in Hong Kong. It happened in Japan, in Taiwan, in UK, at a global level. I think they are talking about the young people. I think the time they spend on the social media. I think the breakdown of the family support and this sort of thing. I think it hit every young people all over the world. I think that is the challenges we live today. We used to say that when a student at school is supposed to be a protective factor, which is true, because when they are in school or they are in the university, because these are people, they are the selected one, they are the better one, they are the good one. So it actually, when in 2012, we see there's a large gap about the young people, I think at 15 to 24, these are not, they are all youth, but these are in the school system. But it actually, what we have found out that the gap is closing. The gap is closing. What it means, there is some external factor that affect every youth. Whether you are in school or not in school, you still have the challenge. For example, we are talking about the divorce rate is going up. We talk about the student that spend so much time in the social media. It has been shown that, I mean, it is not very good to the mental health. So I think what we have seen now is that the gap is just going up now. But I still believe that in school, it gives us a very good opportunity to do the early detection and the early intervention. Right? So now, and also I don't know, for the foreign corresponding, whether you realize there's one thing, it happened in Hong Kong, that's the charcoal burning. Right? The charcoal burning is starting from 1997, and then starting from 1 people, and then it's gone up to 320 people in the year of 2003. Now, the charcoal burning is as they burn the charcoal, the poisoning by the carbon monoxide, and then they die from this. What happened?
Paul, I think one reason is that actually committing suicide is not that easy, and this is seen as a kind of an easy way to do it, is it? Because you fall asleep. Why is this particular Hong Kong phenomenon?
It is not that rosy, not that easy. it is quite uncomfortable too. I think our psychiatrists, tell us that for those people who do the charcoal burning, I think they have to make the drugs and the alcohol and then to put them out first. And then why they say in Hong Kong it is so effective to use a charcoal burning? Because it's a small living space. Because when you do it in a bathroom, and our bathroom is so small, so it doesn't take long to build up this toxic level of the carbon monoxide. And then there's a study, and then to show that in New Zealand, I mean, there's someone who like to do the charcoal burning, I think in the garage. They burn up the house. Now they still have not built up this toxic level. So I think there's a lot of context level, context situation in Hong Kong that make it happen. But what we see, the charcoal burning, it is suddenly, it looks like there's a tumor, right? This is from 1 and then to 322. But what is the challenging is that what we have found out that the profile of people who die from charcoal burning is very different from the non-charcoal burning. I mean, exactly what you say. The charcoal burning, they have less mental illness. They are male. I think they have jobs, but they have financial problems, right? So what we see, this new method, it actually join in a new cohort of the people who die from suicide. I think if the method is not available, they may not do this, right? So I think that's what this is what we have. And it actually, from Hong Kong, it spread to other places. We are talking about that is in Hong Kong, that is in South Korea, that is in Japan, that is in Taiwan. Now, in Hong Kong and Taiwan, it has gone up, it has come down. But what is worrying, the South Korea and then Singapore and these places, it still has not seen the rate coming down yet. Now, so far, it's already 50,000 people, they die from the charcoal burning. So I think that is something that not what Hong Kong people should be proud of, although it is initiated from here, I think by the media, by the social media, I think it is gone outside, and then I think that is the situation. But what happened, we have, I'm going to tell you some opportunities, I mean, how we help to prevent that happen. Anyways, when we do suicide prevention, we have to understand, I think, what we call the risk and the protective factors, and then what we found out, the psychiatric disorder, the past suicide attempt, indebtedness, unemployment, never married, social support, and then the present and the number of physical illness. They are known to be the risk and protective factor. But I'd like to highlight this social support. The social support, what we have shown that even if you are mentally not well, even that you are poor, and then you have a high suicide risk, but if you have a good social support, it actually, I think the social support can be a buffer, can be help. So I think what we need to do now, if you are poor, Eric, I can't do much. I cannot give you a job, I cannot give you the money. But if you can empower, I think the people around you to give you the emotional and then some tangible support as well, and that will help them, I think, to face the challenges. So I think so when we say the OR 0.27, what it means that if you have the social support, I think your risk is 73% less than those people who do not have the social support. Now, for the so-called the past suicide attempt, it is 24 times. What it means for those people who have the suicide attempt, I think the chance that they die with suicide will be 25 times more. Now, what does it mean? That if we know someone who has suicide attempt, don't ignore it. Don't ignore the sign and symptom. Don't say, oh, well, he always likes to die. I mean, but it is some sort of signal, I think, to apply for help. I think when we talk with the emergency doctor in the A&E, and then they say, oh, well, this lady has been coming here 5 times in the past month already, you know. But it actually, each time it comes back, it gives us another opportunity, I think, to do something. I think the saddest thing is that if she would not come back, then that would be a failed case. So I always say that every one of us can be a good gatekeeper of someone. Your friends, your family members, do pay attention to them, right? If they look like Eric like this, I mean, that means he might need some help, you know. So I think, talking anyway, but I think that is, because it's a lot of help we tend to give to the profession. But you know, the professional, the supply is scarce, very expensive. But it actually, every one of us can be a good gatekeeper of someone else, okay? All right.
I mean, Paul, how does it work in Hong Kong? I mean, socially, I mean, and culturally, do people get support?
Well, I think we do have some support. I think in school, we try to run this sort of so-called the gatekeeper training, the big brothers and big sisters. It means that training the classmate, I mean to be more awareness of the mental health. I think, first of all, they look after themselves first, and then they learn about the signs and symptoms. And especially now, we train the young people how to detect those people who show some sort of sign in the Facebook, in the WhatsApps, because actually, that is one of our study, I think, to look at the student suicide. It turns out, I think more than 30% of people, they communicated with their friends beforehand. But some of the friends, they just do not know how to pick up the message, right? So now, this is the study we have done. I think if you remember at 2016, when there is a suicide cluster among the school children, I think from January to April, I think there are about 23 young students, I think they killed themselves. So it is very worrying. So what happened, I think, with the support of the police and also the coroners and then the Department of Health, they give us to have a look of the file, of the information. It turns out that this is the number of sort of problem they are suffering from. I think the mental illness, the adjustment problem in terms of the study and the family. It's a lot of relationship problem. It's a lot of relationship problem, okay? So in our summarization, I mean, what we found out that the suicide behavior are always complex. Now, for the media, they always like to simplify the situation. There's a single causes, such that they can make a headline. But please, suicide causes, they are complex. They do not suffer from one causes. And actually, these factors, they are interacting with one another. So what we get is the multiple contributing factors. In our data, it suggested 97% of the students, they suffer from at least two factors. So when the legislature and when other people, they say that, academic problem is the cause of suicide. It actually, you not only simplify the situation, it actually, you are taking away the barriers for some students. I think for them, those who are hesitate, I think, to do this sort of thing, if there's so many people, because of the academic work, they kill themselves, if I join the club, there's nothing new. So I think this is very, very dangerous, that we cannot really identify one single cause. That will lead to copycat effect. So what we have found out that the mental health issue, the psychological concern, the family peer, the relationship problem, the family and school adjustment problem. Now, we do not say that the school is not a problem. Right? What we are saying that the school is not the problem. I think that is very, very important. So we have this 20%, 80%, 85%, and 60%. I think that is what we have got. All right. Going to the Foreign Correspondent Club, we talk about news reporting. Okay, so now first of all, is suicide often reported here in Hong Kong? What I mean here. Now, what kind of suicide should not be reported, and then what kind of suicide may be highlighted, report in the prominent rate, and then when reporting suicide, what information we think that it must be present. It is in the guidelines of the World Health Organization, and also in our center, we also produce this we do not say guidelines. We'll say recommendation, because the journalists, they hate guidelines. They don't teach me how to do my job. So I only very humbly present to you that is our recommendation based on good practices, based on evidence, based on research. I think that is what we're talking about. This is our recommendation. Okay, so who should be in there? Well, just make a guess. There are 6,000 between January this and this. Guess how many days without suicide news in Hong Kong? Without suicide news. Well, as I told you, I mean, every day, I mean, we have 2 or 3 people, they do it. But not every suicide will be reported in the newspaper. And actually, reporting the suicide, there's some sort of bias, selective reporting. Anyway, make a guess. It is too early to make a guess. Okay, 47. Only 47 days out of the 6,828 without the suicide news. Right? Now, what we are saying that, hey, it doesn't mean that reporting the suicide news is a bad thing. No, not at all. I think the question to ask is, how are we going to report it? I think that is the most important thing. So I think that is the question. That is the challenge. Okay, so you see, that is how we report the suicide news in Hong Kong. In Australia, I think we did a study, only 1% of the suicide people got reported. But in Hong Kong, in our study, it showed there are 37% of the people in Hong Kong, if you die, you have 37% chance that you get reported. And then if you're young, if you're a student, you can guarantee you're 90% that you're going to get reported. But when we are old, we are poor, living in some sort of district, and then the chance you get reported is only 10%. Okay, so if you would like to get your news, so think twice. So you see, that sort of prominent news, very sensational. It actually, for me, this is very disturbing. This is the case when 3 young people, they die in Changzhou. That is when do the charcoal burning, they tie themselves together. I'm sorry, I should give you a warning first before I show the slide. You see, that is how in Hong Kong, how very sensational graphically, I think you do this. So now, I'll show you that. And also we think the celebrity suicide. The celebrity suicide, it actually is a higher chance to induce this copycat effect. Okay? So, and then it is supposed called the weather effect. The weather effect is as mean from this sorrow of young weather, and then coined by Dr. David Phillips, and then to refer to what we call the negative effect of the media content on suicide. But now we have the Papageno effect. There could be some positive effect as well. It depends how you report it. Okay, so and then when we say underline the mechanism, why there is a weather effect, why there's a copycat effect, right? So one is what we call the social learning theory. Now, you know what the social learning theory, Eric? Okay, it's fine. So I'm going to show you that it's like this. Okay, the social learning theory. When you read something, you get your attention. Okay, and then you retain it in your brain, and then the motivation or demotivation to do it, and then you have the production. Okay? That is what we call the social learning theory. You be exposed to something, you learn something, you put it here, and then you do it. Okay, so and then the other, what we call the acquired capability of suicide, because even if I want to kill myself, I have to know why, how. But it's exactly what you say. Well, it is pretty difficult. You know? I do not want to jump from a high building. I'm COVID, but so how can I do it? So it actually, because of the media reporting as well, it actually, I think it will lead to acquire the capability to do it. So, and also we're looking at the media effects on the survivor as well. Now we thought that we're only reporting the news, but somehow there is someone missing in the whole total consideration. It is the survivor who see the news. What is the impact of them? Now, I do believe all media personnel, most of them, they're good people. Okay, most of them. And then I do believe that you believe that do know how, right? That's what you believe. But it actually, and then sometimes they say that, why you do not allow me to, why do you discourage us to report the news? They say that, well, I'm doing it just to protect this vulnerable. I would like to raise awareness in the community about the suicide situation. Now, it's nothing wrong. But I can tell you that is one of the interview we got from the suicide survivors. They actually, for you, it's only one-day news. But for them, it could be this sorrow, it lasts forever. Now, this story is about we interviewed a young girl. She told us the story is about her mom. It says her mom killed herself, but very sadly jumped from the death. But she doesn't want the grandmom to know about it because the grandmom is very sick already. She's in the hospital already. And they are not a celebrity whatsoever. But because I think the newspaper, they do report the news, and this sort of news is going to the grandmom. They look at it, and then she feels very sad about this. But it actually, the old lady, I mean, she's going to die soon, right? So what the young girl said, if we can keep that, I think just to protect the survivors. But it turns out that because of this sort of, I don't mean they intended to do this. I always say that there's unintended consequences here. I think in Hong Kong we do a lot of things with good faith, good heart, but always has unintended consequences. I think that is something that we have to think a bit more.
So by the survivor, you mean the family?
Yes, it is the family, the relative, and all the sort of things. So, and then we say that every suicide case, at least you will affect 6 people or even more. So I think sometimes it's not just the news itself, it's how the news could have an impact, I think, to others. And then for us, well, today news, tomorrow it would not be the news. But for the survivors themselves, I think it hurts. Now, we show you the situation with these 3 celebrities. I think there's one in Korea, Taiwan, and then that is in Hong Kong in 2003, I think Leslie Chong. Now, what you can see every time when you have the suicide death, and then the immediate 4 weeks to 6 weeks, I think it goes up. It actually, when it go up, and it doesn't come down. It doesn't come down. So, okay. Thank you. It might be too noisy. Just okay? Okay, thank you. Now, the impact on the journalists. I think I told you yesterday when the cable TV, they came in to do an interview, and then the young lady said, I said, well, how have you been? I asked her, how have you been? I said, what do you mean? I said, well, have you taken the tear gas? I said, oh, of course. So actually, most of the journalists, I think, they are also under a very tense situation. So I think, I don't know whether this PTSD will come in. I think anxiety and then depression, insomnia, and suicide. Now, what we see, actually, I think in Hong Kong, before we have this sort of social movement, I think if you know that 1/7 of us are not mentally so well, I think they have the signs of depression, the symptom of the depression. So 1/7 in a room of 40 people here, at least you have 5 or 6 people that are not well. So if you're not well, it's nothing special. It's quite common, you know. So what we are saying here is how we look after ourselves. I think that's very important. That is very important. Now, before I came here, I managed to do my swimming before I came, and this is how I keep myself well. Because I've been asked, no, you have been doing suicide prevention for so long. I mean, are you depressed? Well, I'm trying to not to. No, I mean, I always say, if you are depressed, how can you help people not to get depressed? You know, one of the challenges, the school term will start in next week. What we worry is the teachers, I think they are not mentally well. I mean, the students, they are not well. And how can you expect the teachers, I mean, to do the job? So I think, how can we really helping this so-called helping professional to remain well? So I always, hopefully, if you are the boss, I think if you are the boss, do provide a more healthy mental health environment, I think, for your employees. It is good. It is good. I learned a word called the presenteeism. You know what is presenteeism? We always talk about absenteeism, right? The absenteeism because of the mental not well, so I'm sick, and I call in sick, I cannot work. No? But the presenteeism, if you go to work, you're not functioning. I mean, just like, no, not you and me, right? So there are a lot of people, they go to work, they're being disturbed by this sort of thing. They cannot concentrate. They cannot be as productive as they should. Now, the cause itself, I don't think we have a good estimate of this. And actually, we do waste a lot of, I think, the economic value or human capital, I think, because of this. So I think it is utmost important, I think in media, how to promote this sort of thing. Okay? So there's 3 principles, I think, recommendation. Now, I hopefully, how much time I have now? So, we have this recommendation. I think so. If we have a Chinese and an English one, you can download it, and there's a hard copies here. protect the privacy considered risk by the vulnerable individual. It's very important now. The privacy issue is as one of the major concerns now. I mean, why the protester, they cut down the lamp pole, you know? I think it is because of the privacy. That's true, right? That's what they worry. Take the opportunity to educate the public and the mental and suicide people. I always believe, I think everybody, especially in as a media professional, you really have an opportunity to make a difference in how you present the news, how you can help the people to better. I always say, if you like to change anything, you have to raise the awareness. You have to let them to buy in to change their attitude, and subsequently, they will lead to behavioral changes. Because a lot of times there's so many myths, just like when the people say that, well, there's already 6 people because of this movement, they died from suicide. I'm not quite sure. I think these 6 people themselves, they also suffer from some known, I think, risk factors already. And somehow this movement might legitimize, I think, the way how they do the thing. So what I'm trying to say, that if there's not such a movement, they might or they may not. I think they have the high risk already. But if you try to simplify the situation, make them a heroic explanation, it actually, the unintended consequences is not these 6 people, these tragic cases. It's there are many, many around. They might be, I think they could be there. I always say suicide is not the best way to solve our problem. There are many ways to solve our problem. But how are we going to do this? And it has become a very, very important. It could be that news itself. So we actually encourage the people, don't share the suicide news that often. We always love to share. And when I talk to the young people, they have a different feeling. They say that it is their responsibility. It's their responsibility to, first of all, to keep a close contact, update situation of the movement. And secondly, they like to be the first one, to push the information out without doing the fact check, without doing all this sort of thing. And they do not know what are the possible negative consequences, to the one who receiving this message. I always say that posting the message is fine, but think a bit more for those who are receiving the message. If he is really down already, if he's really depressed already, if he continues being swarmed by this sort of negative news, what would be the possible consequences? What good would you do? You mean to support these people, you mean to protect these people, but because of how the message being shared and crossed, and that could have some fatal consequences. Okay. So take self-care, I think it's very important, self-care. So the media professionals should do to minimize the negative impact or involve in the party in terms of stigma and psychological suffering. I think this is how to destigmatize. And then respect the privacy who attempt or die from suicide in the family to ensure the reporting does not add to the pain they are already experiencing. That's what I say. For you, might be a one-day news. For those survivors, could be their whole life's sorrow. I think that is we have to. And I want to highlight the coverage, the address, and the membership of the community. And that will also lead to some sort of suicide cluster as well. And especially that's for the young people. So now, care attitude, practice active listening when interviewing the victims of the attempted suicide and the film. Don't try to have your story and try to select whatever you feel, and then to fit in your story, and try to listen to what actual say. And then avoiding badgering or paying an unannounced visit. Now, that is also something very unfortunate, and it does happen, especially for the celebrity suicide, and especially, for the cases for the deputy secretary of the education when her son died. And then this sort of thing, we should be very sensitive. I think as a professional, as a media professional, as anyone, we should exercise this sort of respect, humility, and then I think that is very important. Take the opportunity to educate the public. It actually is a good opportunity to change them. Provide a warning sign. Now, it actually, before we do anything, there's not much, but now it is good now. There were warning signs, there are Samaritans, and then all this sort of thing. It comes in. It it helps. It helps. We have some stories to say that when we have this news, and then they go in, they get help. I mean, while they are burning the charcoal, it's because they have the sign, and then they manage to call their hotline. And fortunately, the hotline got someone to pick up the call. So, and actually, they ask them, okay. So you keep on talking. They ask them to open the window, and then such that. Then they call the ambulance, and then the whole family is one young woman with 2 young children, right? So I think it helps. But if you were the editor of the newspaper, the things to cross out is this helplines, because you do not have. We all know that the space are very expensive, right? I mean, so that's just what they use. Anyway, so available support and services. I think we have the helpline numbers, and then so we make sure they take the opportunity to do this, and then self-care. I think the community care is very much. So if the professional, I mean, if they are not well, you would not be expect them, I think, to get a very high quality products. So if the ones as established assistant, I think it's a stress, and maintaining good mental health either through an on-site counseling services or referral, and then to prevent the burnout, the media professional have a healthy working environment. I think it's very important. I think for the foreign press in Hong Kong, you might have a better deal. But if you ask the local press, I think they do not stop work until 12 o'clock at night time. I mean, sometimes at 11 o'clock, they still keep on calling me and say, oh, somebody dies already. What should we do? I mean, I do appreciate that they call in, but I thought, do you need to sleep? I mean, but they work very late. I still remember the South China Morning Post. They close a bit earlier, but now they also work a bit later now. So, but when you look at the Chinese press, I think they won't stop until 11. I think, and that is hard. So practice community care and then self-awareness. Now, if I can, I'd like to give you some sort of more encouraging news, because I think right in the morning, I think I always like to do one good thing in a day. So I hope this is a good thing I do to cheer people up. I mean, Hong Kong is very depressed this day. Now, sometimes I'm also very not depressed now, but I do feel the pressure. Okay, so the successful story about the successful story is about this. Reason why, we have to do some diagnosis about why the previous media guideline was often legal. We run some training for the local newspaper. These are generous, but they have a very turnover rate in the media industry. Whenever we have press conferences, when the Chinese press, the journalists come in, they're 20, 21, and every time they come, they say, I don't have a card yet, So it is the first assignment or the second. So every time we have to continue this engagement. So you do not only do once a year, so you might have to do once every year, to continue this engagement. And then the founder have no power, the editor and the executive manager. Now, I talked to one of the cameras people, they said, hey, nowadays, I mean, the editor, they will ask, why you do not get this photo? Why this newspaper get this photo? So they under a lot of pressure, I mean, to do that sort of thing. And some recommendation are something they say that, hey, this recommendation is too general, it's not realistic, which could be true, right? But sometimes we try to make it as practical as possible. So this recommends not selective reporting, editorial consideration, highlight the method. But now it's some of the wording. I think it is recommended by the WHO. Some of the wording which are appropriate, which are not appropriate. Do you want to make a guess? Committing. So which one you say is as good? Oh. So committing suicide. We do not like say commit a suicide. Commit suicide like you commit a crime. Okay, there's some sort of judgment there. We do not like to call successful suicide. It means that if I actually die, I'm successful. No, that's also not very good. So we like to say the death by suicide. Okay, kill oneself. Okay, not fail suicide. Fail means if I I'm such a failure. Even I like to kill myself, I couldn't do it. So that is not a good thing. Incomplete suicide, also not a good thing. Because we like to do something in completion, right? When you're incomplete, that means you're no good, right? And then the suicide attempt, suicide thought, I think that will be fine. So I think there are certain words, I think, which is unintentionally, I think you carry out some meaning, okay? Okay, so images, we have to be careful. Website is also, I think this emanation of suicide behavior. Now, that doesn't happen much in the foreign press, but in the Apple Daily or in some other Oriental Daily, they have this sort of emanation. Now, when I buy a newspaper, it doesn't matter you do the front coverage and those sort of things. After today, you throw it away or you put it on the table, put a pot there. But when you do the media, it stays there forever. It stays there forever. And it is bad. We have tried one to convince the Apple Daily to take away an emanation. I mean, the emanation, they think that they are following through the whole process. They have an argument with their husband, and then they open the window, and then they see the blue sky, and then they jump. No? So it is quite very sensational. Right, so the search engine, we have tell you we managed to talk to the Google, and then when you say I would like to die from suicide, usually when you they will give you the die from suicide method and also, but now they managed to give the suicide prevention number, right? So that is how they push it in. I mean that is. And so there's a lot of talking about how Facebook, how Google, in China, the Baidu, and how they do the suicide prevention. The cyberbullying is one thing is very real, it's very important. And then the social media group, I think we have to be a bit more careful, I think, when we do the social media groups. So this is the version with the recommendation, that's what to do and what not to do. And then actually we run a generous workshop. Can say, if you follow this what to do and what not to do, and I asked a real journalist, how can you produce a suicide story when you can adhere to this rule? They say, forget it, there's no story. There's nothing I can write. and to a certain extent, yes, this is what we want. So it is because we really want to downplay the thing. Sometimes, I think a couple of years ago, when the New York Times, I think they called me up from New York. And then we have a suicide case in New York. We'd like to ask your view on this now. And this on charcoal burning. So then we explain to them that's how we spread and all things. So after we speak for half an hour, and the next day, there's no news in the New York Times. Because they decided, because of the possible consequences, they do not publish it. Now, it is a judgment. It is a professional call. Now, with or without this sort of news, I don't think the New York Times, it will go up, the stock price. But what it really means, as a professional, you do a professional call. Whether this sort of news, it will niche to any copycat. Okay, so we have an update version. So now some encouraging news about the charcoal burning. You know, when we do the charcoal burning, we do an intervention. We appeal to the supermarket to lock the charcoal. You know, I don't know whether you're familiar with the local supermarket situation. What sort of product will be locked in the supermarket? It's a secret, the alcohol, but not the bloody charcoal, right? What for? It is not expensive. Why do we lock it there? But the whole idea is lock it there. You make it less difficult for them to access it. You're buying time, and hopefully something can change. So, you know, in Hong Kong, we're always short of neighbors, right? So when you lock this thing, if you get someone there, at least you have to wait for 10 minutes if you're lucky, you know? So it actually, we like to slow down the whole thing. But it turns out, the suicide rate for those charcoal burning in the 2-minute area, it has come down. For the Yunnan district, who do not have this, it has not changed. So then, no, at that time when we do it, the newspaper, they say, well, you are silly, you know, if you think that lock up the charcoal, why don't you take out the life? I mean, when you buy all the tall building. But sometimes I think it's just, you have to try out, you're the richer. So we make the differences. But what happened, then this method, it go to Taiwan, it go to Korea, it has made the thing to come down too. So I think it helped. And I should give thanks to one of your news, I'm not sure he is your member, Simon Perry. Yeah, and then he was the one who helped us to advocate this. Right? So he made a report to the newspaper, and then to put the pressure to the supermarket. And then why don't you not do this? And it actually, we do not pay the supermarket to set up this sort of storage. It's the supermarket, they feel they have a responsibility to do this. Right? So they slog this, and then in Taipei City, it has come down to. Okay, good. So now this is another thing is about the helium suicide. I think there's just one other thing, the helium, the balloon. I mean, what we see, there's a lot of people, they kill themselves, they're using the helium too. So it's also the spread by the media, and it goes like this. We are very worrying, but we work with a lot of people, and then we make the changes, and we go to the Taiwan to tell them not to do this or news. So it happened after all this work. Charcoal goes like this, the helium, it remains as it is. So what I'm trying to say, there is a possibility if we do the things right, and it can help. So, that is talk about the student suicide, that is the media reporting. 1 year later, we still have student suicide. We do not have as many. The school system doesn't change yet. It's still as bad as it has been. But you see, the media reporting, there's a role to play. So the last thing I'd like to share with you, we have opened up the emotional support system, because young people now, they do not call up, they text you and text me. So now we have a 24 hours, 265 a year, and then 24 hours a day to help the young people. For the not so young, you can do it too. So you can tap in, they will not discriminate you, okay? So we have this, and at the end, I still believe that community support is very important, and then we do believe that is an individual level, community level, population level to do it together. And then the last thing to say, I think I always say that when the sun comes out, everybody is happy. When it rains, somebody get an umbrella, I mean, to keep them dry, but some don't. What happened? But if I have a bigger umbrella here, that will keep people dry. I mean, that's the whole idea. Provide the community support. All right? So at the end, I always believe that suicide prevention, we are doing with a small group of people here. Trying to find these people might be difficult, but if we can improve the overall well-being of the population, it actually, you have less people to have a problem. So I think what we can do, what the media can do, is we all can help to improve the overall situation, I think, of the Hong Kong population. This one, I always say that it's very sad. Don't try to simplify the situation. Don't to sensationalize this. It's nobody good. Nobody good. It will have unintended consequences. Please be careful. Staying alive, I mean, is very important, as the economist says, without staying alive. And then the iceberg. I think in Hong Kong, I think what we see now, I think it is like we've seen the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg. I always say, how do we make the iceberg small? I think it is by the social warming, by the community. I mean, now the community is so polarized. I mean, we just cannot pull it together. I think if you really want to see the iceberg to be small, we're starting from us. I mean, to be inclusive, embracive, and then try to take away your hatred, I think, in ourselves. I mean, to rebuild the harmony, I think, in Hong Kong now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So you mentioned the Samaritans, and we're lucky this morning, Brenda Schofield you're a member of the board of the Samaritans in Hong Kong, I think.
Yes.
We were chatting just before. You say the nature of calls you've been receiving has changed in the past few weeks during the protests. Could you talk about that a bit?
Can I come up?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I'm very small, and if I don't... I didn't expect this, but I never say no to a platform for the Samaritans. Let me tell you, there are 3 lots of suicide prevention agencies in Hong Kong. We are the original, the Samaritans. We came from UK. We are the only English-speaking service. Most of our volunteers, and we're all volunteers, 24 hours a day. See, I like doing this. 24 hours a day, there is always someone there. Most of our volunteers are bilingual, if not trilingual. And we take 30,000 calls a year. We have noticed not necessarily an increase in calls, but we have noticed that there is a difference in the nature of calls now. People are feeling the earth moving under their feet. Things are very different. We've had calls, the youngest person I've ever had was about 7. Unbelievable, right? A kid of 7 phones up. A lot of older people who just are wondering what's going to happen to their family. For example, I can't speak in specifics, but for example, a family member may phone to say, look, I'm really frightened because my mum lives in, shall we say, Shanxiupo. And she won't come to me. I'm frightened for her. She doesn't realize what's happening. So we might get someone who starts speaking about something else. It's very common in our calls. Because remember, all we have is a voice in our ear. We can't see faces. We can't see body language. So we have to rely on what we hear. Sometimes the silence is really important and what's happening in that silence. Sometimes we have to learn to be silent. And it's hard these days, isn't it? We want to fill every minute with sound. Samaritans are trained to trust silence. And sometimes someone is just a bit frightened to get onto what they really want to talk about. And that's why we listen, and we listen hard. And when eventually someone may start talking about things which are to do with what's happening. You know, we've had phone calls from people where they say, wait, I'm going to open the window. And you think, God, don't jump. But they're not doing that. They want me to hear what's happening outside because they're living near an area where it's actually happening, and it's very fearful. So, yes, our calls are changing because there's this underlying feeling of not knowing where it's going, how it's going to end. And we all feel like that, don't we? Who knows where this is going to end? And it's fearful because we love this place.
So what do you tell people when they say that?
We don't tell them. This is the curious thing about SANS. You see, some of us are counsellors, but that doesn't matter. What we're there to do is really to listen and to say, I get what you're saying. And often this is what people need. They need someone to say, I understand. You never say, I feel the same as you, because no one knows how anyone else is feeling. But what we do say is, tell me more. How does that affect you? How's it going in your family? So by those sort of questions, someone is able to get out the stuff that they might be scared to do otherwise. So it's not a question of giving advice. It's almost like saying, okay, I'll hold this for a bit for you. Now tell me what's happening to you and how you feel. Feeling is really important because very often we can't go to family members or to friends and say, I'm really scared about this. Okay, now we can because we are all sharing this fear of what's happening to Hong Kong. But if we're talking about suicide, it is terrifying to be able to say, look, I've got so low, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do. And, you know, when people are really deep, I hope Paul will agree with me, when people are really deep in what we would call suicidal ideation, this feeling that there is nowhere to go, it's like they are blind and they're deaf, and it's really, really hard to get through. Now, Paul talked a lot about what people in the media should avoid doing. Can I tell you what you must do? You need to publicize us. You need to make sure that Samaritan's number is, thank you, South China Morning Post, because you do it really well now, that everywhere you are writing about distress, concern, suicide, you make sure our number is at the end of your article, or you include something in your article that says, if you have been affected by this article, you can call the Samaritans. We also have an email service, but this is really important. When someone from the government, we have no government financial support, by the way, and we're there all the time, but we struggle on. So if anybody wants to do donations, you're very welcome. When the government came to see us, Matthew Chung came, and he was lovely, and he said, but you're hidden angels. We don't want to be hidden angels. Most Samaritans cannot say they're Samaritans. I'm allowed to do it because I'm on the board, and part of my job is to tell you what we do. But most Samaritans can never tell you what they do. And the reason is we don't want you to be scared of phoning the SAMs in case you get someone you know. Yeah? Makes sense? I've never spoken to anyone I know, but that's the way we do it. And we work in that way. And because of that, we are hidden. But we don't want to be hidden. And anyone who's in here, who's in the media, we are always willing to speak to you. Do articles on us. Tell people there is help and how to get help. Anything else you need?
Great, thank you.
I had to do that, all right?
Very good.
Look after us, thank you.
This is one thing I noticed in the British media actually reporting celebrity suicides. Recently they put a line in the bottom with the Samaritans number, for example, so that's been a change. So, okay, I think if everybody's okay for time, I think we've got some time for some questions. So, I'll open it to the floor. Questions? Here. And please give your name. Yeah, thanks.
Martin Sabine, an associate member. Paul, your statistics are always very interesting. I think in 2003 you noticed that big spike in suicides because of SARS. And then you mentioned the emergence of charcoal burning and the sort of romance, Leslie Chung and so on, that there might be associated with certain types of suicide. And press reporting and how that affected things. Now, at the moment, of course, we've got press reporting is very sensational. Tear gas makes good pictures, Molotov cocktails even better. There seems to be a bit of a competition among the press to show the most lurid pictures. Do you think, is there anything in your research, do you think there's a danger of some of the more violent protesters having some kind of suicidal ideation, wishing to offer themselves up as a martyr? Because clearly if someone died, that would bring the present situation to a whole new level. Do you think this is a danger?
Well, I hope the situation will not go like that, but the way how we assess the present situation now, I think is the worst is yet to come. I think if the worst is yet to come, it means that there will be more serious accident, and sometimes could be fatal. It occur either from both sides, whether it's the police or the demonstrators. Yes, I think the whole city are very, very tense. Not only the protesters. I mean, even the viewers. I mean, in front of the television, I think the people feel they're very upset. They cannot go to sleep. I think that is a situation. So I think the whole city, I think, need some times of calmness. I think they need some very effective way how to rebuild our how to mitigate, I think, this sort of mental pressure upon us every day. You know what I mean? We always ask the people to turn off these 24-hour news, to try to get away from the cell phone. You know what I mean? This sometimes, I think, is a basic thing that we need to do. But as I said, I do hope, I think, in the school, in the workplace, I think we really have to do something. I've been trying to keep the thing down. Now for the demonstrator, I mean, what we have seen, some they're getting more aggressive. I think they are willing to sacrifice their life. I mean, for this sort of thing. Yes, I think we are still trying to find out what are the effective way, I think, to engage these people. I think, and then I think if the social media, I think, is one of the ways, whether in one of the popular websites we can do something on this, I think that could be a way out. But I always try to ask the people, say that please go and talk to someone, seek help. we always say it's okay not to be okay. No, so don't try to hide everything here until it blew up. No, I think so I think that's
Any advice for journalists? I mean, it's pretty full on, and
I think
there's a risk of PTSD.
I think they need some day off. They need some days off. They cannot just go to attend the scene every day. I think it actually is not only mental health. It's not very good to the health already. I mean, there are some people they have already demonstrated from this respiratory problem. I think the skin problem, all those are things. I think they do need rest, and of course, I think I think you give them a good support system. I think is really, and I asked one of the frontline what their protection gear. They say that their protective gear is a substandard one. They cannot get the best one because the best one they get the clearance from the security branch. I mean to have this sort of thing. So I think they need to have a better gears. I mean to protect themselves, better time off. I think that are important. I think in Hong Kong at this moment, I mean everybody is very tense now. So I think we do need some sort of rest.
Another question? Get that microphone.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned 900.
Can you please give your name?
George Wu, the Samaritans. You mentioned 900 is too many, 2 or 3 per day. But I would like to know whether or not you are a statistician as well. So what is the true statistic? Who deems suicide? Whether it's the police, the coroner, the physician, I would like to know the real picture. I think it's much higher than 900.
Well, I think in Hong Kong, I think we still follow the British system. I think we have the coroners. I think every suicide death has to be ascertained by the coroners. They have to satisfy the beyond the reasonable doubt. So it actually, when someone dies, I think it's investigated by the police, and then they will give all the evidence to the coroners, and then the coroner is one of the magistrates. I think they collect all the evidence, not only from the police, from the hospital, from the relative as well. Then they will, if they are satisfied with the evidence that is beyond reasonable doubt, and then they will classify as a suicide cases. And if not, I think they either do more investigation or they call it undetermined cause of death. I mean, in the ICDD, it's an X60 to X68 thing. But in Hong Kong, our undetermined cause of death is very small. In compared with the suicide death, it's only about 3 to 5%. When you look at in Singapore, they have the undetermined cause of death is about 30%. So what it means is some of the suicide might be hidden among the undetermined cause of death. But in Hong Kong, so far we have a very still a very reliable, I think, ascertainment. These are processes.
Please join me in giving another round of applause to Professor Yip and to Eric for moderating. That was very useful. He will probably be around for a few more minutes if you have questions, and I know the Samaritans are here if anybody wants to speak with them about what they do. And also, I want to mention that downstairs in the main bar area, we have our photo exhibit called our wall exhibit this month is on the protests for Hong Kong, past and present. So we have some archival photos. It's going back to 1967, and photos from this summer as well, including from some club members. It's museum quality and really thought-provoking, so if you get a chance, take a look downstairs. Thank you again.
Just one thing, your recommendations, not your guidelines. Where can people find them online, for example? They're on...
I can give you 2 copies. If you want, I can give you more copies.
Pass them right. But is it online as well? Or what's the website?
We have a link there. Yeah. Where's my link? I'll send you the link, right? And then
okay, we can put it. Sarah, when we post it online, we can put the link.
And then we give you the
Samaritans as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We give you the PDF as well. Okay.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
And we are posting this on our site. Thank you all.
Thanks.